good morning, and welcome to another week. I hope you've had a fabulous weekend. And this morning, I wanted to get you off on a positive note to start your week by sharing with you one of the processes that I talk about in your next chapter, which helps you get over negative, or what we call the ants, automatic negative thinking. Now, this is on page 99 and goes from 99 to 102, and it's called the catch and detach process, and I found it really helpful. Now, what is catch and detach? Well, it is a reliable, immediate, and tangible way to respond when your emotions start running amok. Normally, when you're on a growth edge, when you're about to try something new, something that just pushes your buttons a little bit in terms of where the doubt may come up, and this process allows you to move through that a lot quicker. Now, to be able to use catch and detach, you need a few things. Number one, you need to have familiarity with who your inner critic is. Now, that part's easy. There's actually a quiz on my website, and I'll pop the link below. But if you go into angelarasmus.com/, take the quiz, and that will help you work out which of the five most common inner critics is the one that is running the show. Now, there's always more than one that pop up at different times, but most of us have like a dominant critic who has the most to say in a certain style. So being understanding who that inner critic is the first step. The second one is some familiarity with your vulnerability triggers. What are the things in your business and life that just put you on edge and you know that you're going to need a little bit of extra support with? Now, for me, I fall into the comparison trap. My key inner critic is the comparison queen, and so that is a vulnerability trigger for me, to look at what other people are doing and feel as though I don't measure up. So I'm very aware that that's a vulnerability trigger for me, which allows me to be a little on top of it. But part of that, the third step, is a commitment to self-awareness, to know when these feelings are starting to get in the way of me doing my work in the world, or expanding, trying something new. So those are the three things that are important for you to be able to use this process. Who's your inner critic? Take the quiz. What are your vulnerability triggers? What makes you nervy? And switching on your self-awareness so that you know what's going down. Okay. Now, the catch and detach process has its roots in ACT, acceptance commitment training, or acceptance commitment therapy. It's used in a couple of different ways. And Russ Harris here in Australia is the fellow that I did my training with, and I think his work is amazing. I also had the great fortune of interviewing him for the podcast a couple of years ago, and it still remains the number one most popular downloaded episode on the podcast. So I'll pop that in here for you to go and have a listen to as well if you'd like to find out more about how ACT works. But let's look at catch and detach. How can you use it today? If you're sitting here in front of a fresh week with some ideas that you want to bring into the world, something new that you want to try, to write, to do, to expand into, and you're feeling that there's some vulnerability there, here is a great process. Now, the first part is, as the name suggests, catch. It is to catch the thoughts, but you will feel them in your body first. And so tuning into the body barometer and knowing when that feeling, recognizing the feelings that are hitting. Now, with me, it's normally in the belly. It's almost like a sucker punch in there, and a sort of a dragging feeling. I can feel my shoulders dropping, everything is slowing down. That is one of my body barometer triggers. What happens after that is that the thoughts kick in. Okay, there's always the feeling, then the thought. And the thoughts that kick in will be different for everyone. But with me, for example, it's going to be along the lines of, why do I bother? Look, it's already been done. What you're doing is not going to measure up. What were you thinking? All of those thoughts start flooding in. So I have to catch them. Okay, catching them and giving them a name. Like, almost like they're a story. There's the old story of you're never going to be good enough. Giving them a name and catching them in that way allows you to insert space. And this is where the ACT idea comes in. Acceptance commitment training talks about not fusing with your thoughts. Like, you're going to have the thoughts. It's natural. No one coast through life with that, like Teflon, with absolutely no doubt. But if those thoughts attach to your face like, the alien from those movies, it's very difficult for you to do your good work in the world. So you catch them, you insert the space, you recognize the story, and then you choose to detach. You choose to go, there is that story, and to replace it with a more positive thought. And that positive one is going to depend on what it is that you're doing. But for example, if it's getting on a Facebook Live and the nerves are hitting and it's telling you not to do it, the thought that you could choose to replace, you detach and then replace the thought with, I may not get it perfect, but I want to show up. As simple as that. Okay. Now, this is a practice. It's not something that you can just use as a magical panacea and you're going to just stride off into the world and never be afraid again. That's not the idea. The idea is to give you this in the moment knowledge, awareness, ability to go, the thought, no, it's not for me today. Now, a classic example of how this worked for me was actually working on the book. I got to the stage where I needed to look at page layouts, how I wanted the book to look and feel. And I was working with my wonderful editor, Bev Ryan, who's actually book producer. And to do that, I needed to look at other books. And for someone who is vulnerable to the comparison queen, I knew, this is keeping the awareness high, that there could be some vulnerability coming up. But anyhow, I had to do it, so I went off there and I chose 3 or 4 of the books that I really enjoyed, and I started looking through and going, oh yeah, I love the way they do those headings, and wow, that font, and oh my god, oh whoa. Oh, she writes so well. My God, why do I even bother? And what is happening? Like, why should I write this? And in she came, my Helga, my inner critic, just straight away started telling me how my book didn't measure up. Now, fortunately, I have catch and detach. It's the process that I've really worked on time and time again. And I was able to recognize those thoughts that were coming in, catch them, refute them with a story and my own new thoughts. Yes, their books are fantastic. This is your first book, and it is the absolute best version of your first book that you can do. Be proud of yourself. You've done a great job. Okay, so I had to bring in my inner sage to actually tend to those fears by using the catch and detach so that I would get on with the job and do my work in the world. So that is catch and detach. That is the simple process that if you get into the habit of using it regularly, you will gradually dismantle those automatic negative thoughts in terms of their power and potency. They will never go away. But what you can do is that you can intervene, almost stage an intervention on yourself, and take your thoughts in a more supportive, self-worth connected direction. And over time, you'll find you've turned the volume down and you are more visible, more findable, more courageous, more creative, because you're no longer being tripped up by your own inner critic. So your action today, go and take the quiz. Find out who is your inner critic. See if you've got a comparison queen like me. Let us know which of the critics that you found when you did that quiz, and then use catch and detach as often as you can so that you can get out there, unveil what is happening in your next chapter and make the difference that you're here for. So that's the Monday thought. Have a wonderful day. I hope it is useful, and I will talk with you again really soon. Take care.